Warning, if you have not seen whatever it is that I'm reviewing, this video may contain spoilers of key events. You'll have to consider this before watching the rest of the review. You have been warned. Puella Magi Madoka Magica was an anime released back in January 2011 and was directed by Akiyuki Shinbo of Bakemonogatari fame and Gen Urobuchi, the same writer who wrote this girl anime. One would expect naked lollies transforming into colorful girly outfits and fight monsters and shit, while rapidly kicking you in the balls throughout the span of 12 episodes around our cotton candy haired after having a would-be lesbian dream about some girl fighting a dark monster.
Okay, you know what? This setup isn't exactly doing it for me anymore. Besides, I'm going to review the films. Puella Magi Madoka Magica is one of those occasional animes that come along and successfully blows me away. And I'm not just talking about the tone or the twists. From the themes of the story, to the direction, to visuals, to audio, it all culminates in something of an exquisite crafting of elements, shining through to make Madoka Magica a diva who can be described as a rare breed that deserves all the praise and flowers thrown its way. You can't just crap out Madoka Magica. You have to forge it with blood, sweat, and tears, and boy oh boy, the experience will never be forgotten. From the speculations and theories as each episode came out, the reactions, the fan art, and of course, Morning Rescue! You bet that this was something marveled by most who saw it during the initial airing, and you could definitely bet your ass I feel proud of being a part of it. Madoka Magica is even something I'll admit to being a bit of a fanboy to. Yeah, it doesn't matter what you say or do, Madoka is out to get you. I proclaim this because later the same year, it was announced that Madoka Magica was getting 3 films, and as you can imagine, I went apeshit for it. Even if the first 2 were simply rehashes of the show with upgraded visuals and inevitable cuts and changes, but who fucking cares? More Madoka. The results? How I feel towards these films isn't going to be the same as how I feel towards the show, since the package presented here led to a vastly different experience despite telling the same story. What do I mean? Find out as I give you my evaluation of Puella Magi Madoka Magica, beginning and eternal.
No one comes to my dad's church, and we're starving. Contract?
The plot for both films tackled the same premise in the show, with Beginning adapting the first 8 episodes and Eternal adapting the last 4 episodes. We have our central protagonist, Madoka Kaname, your average middle school girl who lives in a badass ultramodern house with her mother, her father, and little brother. Around this point, as she's heading for a badass school, she encounters her friends, the strong-hearted Saika Miki and the elegant Hitomi Shizuki. Everything seems pretty usual for a cotton candy-haired character until a new transfer student named Hamura Akemi enters the picture, a mysterious girl who asks Madoka something cryptic about the life she lives. Later, as she and Saika are shopping, Madoka hears a voice in her head and follows it, leading to the discovery of Kyubei, a white cat-like creature who Hamura is trying to hunt down for some reason. Saika comes to the rescue and they flee. Unfortunately, they become trapped by a dark entity known as a witch, only to be promptly saved by the golden-haired Mami Tomoe, who introduces herself as a magical girl, a person who gets any wish granted to them via a contract, gaining magical powers to do the dangerous task of defeating witches in exchange, with the incentive being that each time a witch is killed, they leave little objects known as grief seeds. You see, each magical girl carries a soul gem, serving as a power source, which becomes tainted the more it's used and have to be cleansed of impurity by grief seeds. Madoka and Saika have the potential to become these powerful beings, and as the story goes on, we also get introduced to the rough-edged Kyoko Sakura, a girl who fights for herself instead of others. Now acknowledging the existence of magical girls, events transpire as the story truly begins, and I mean it truly begins, as surprises and ambiguity shrouds the foundations of this coming-of-age story about maturity, despair, and tragedy, but also how hope could be found along the way. If you're even remotely familiar with the magical girl genre, Puella Magi Madoka Magica is a deconstruction of said genre, taking core elements expected from such an anime or manga and caps those expectations in the balls, appearing quite harmless, maybe even generic, only to demolish those preemptive notions to dust. Using a Faustian premise as a template, Madoka Magica is really a tale about finding one's place in the world and cause and effect, what you are willing to give for the wishes you want, and how those wishes can falter before your eyes, but also how far are you willing to discover your place in life, and how determined are you to protect the one you care for most. Mami became a magical girl for her life, Kyoko did so for family beliefs, Sayaka did so for love and idealism, and Homura did so for the sake of a friend. And each of their wishes wind up or keep backfiring to a variety of effects on who they are. Kyoko faces the destruction of said family. Mami is lonely. Sayaka is prone to have her ideals diminished and her love taken from her. And Homura's hope can be broken at any moment. Then you get to Madoka. Unlike the other characters, Madoka doesn't have a clear-cut path laid out, and as a result, she feels unbelonging, and her narrative arc revolves around this. She cares about people, has good intentions, and is even willing to go to certain lengths for the sake of doing the right thing. But she is also unsure of what to become a magical girl for, doubting herself at points, especially when layers upon layers of secrets are revealed, which makes everything around Madoka that much more uncertain and gray. To become a magical girl is to have a wish granted, and to be a magical girl is to gradually understand something damaging, and to come to those realizations and consequences is to succumb to despair. And to succumb to despair is to become a witch. And the cherry on top is that all of this is done for the greater good, with Homura trying desperately to prevent all this pain from happening to Madoka in the face of impending doom. But it's not just the characters, even the world is about this. Mitakihara is this big city full of advanced technology and a highly modern, near-futuristic aesthetic on almost every front, painting this view of prosperity and stylish living with digital chalkboards, retractable desks, computers, touchscreens, laser keyboards, you name it. A very developed setting that Madoka and company live in, and is yet another product of the story themes. What are you willing to sacrifice for your world? This is a question that's shown in plain sight. Life is easy, shallow, carefree, but at what cost? Revolutions, wars, discoveries, progress. In the reality of Madoka Magica, magical girls throughout time have sacrificed themselves for their wishes, from seeking to change their world, to protect it, or to grant something that was once impossible or non-existent, culminating in the modern world built upon the history of wishes and despair. Each magical girl finds their place in the world, fulfilling the purpose they create with the contract, dying as their wish falls apart or succumbing to despair. It's really eye-opening knowing that Madoka's life is an illusion made from tragedy, as good as it may look. These are the pillars of Madoka Magica's story, dealing with the topic of growing up. Its magical girl and Faustian elements forming allegories, though it wouldn't have worked as well without a contrast that exists. No, it's not a contrast between Madoka and Homura or Mami or even Kyoko. The contrast I believe is integral to the ever-loving story is Madoka and her mother. While Madoka is indecisive about who she wants to be or what to do, Junko already knows who she is and what to do. She's more or less Madoka's role model, and is asked advice when her daughter needs it, responsible for her growth and direction as a character. What Madoka learns from her mother is used throughout her arc, from acting like a lolly being dragged into a dark alley to where the road takes her. When you come right down to it, Junko is the big reason why Madoka's arc works the way it does. Without Junko, there's no guidance for Madoka, and without guidance of who she should be, the plot would lack meaning. It focuses on a bigger picture about setting Madoka on her path, treading with nuance, naturally flowing, never smacks you on the head savagely, one piece tied to another, creating a story that is able to connect with us in some way. Maturity is a subject that many stories have told, and this is no exception, doing so in a way that's brilliant in its own right. After all, it is a magical girl anime. Now, as a TV show, Madoka Magica is a masterpiece, 5 out of 5 without the shadow of a doubt. But this is a review of the films, and as films, this is where things get a wee bit messy. The Achilles heel lies in the challenge of fitting 12 20+ minute episodes into 2 separate feature-length films, and while it has some welcome additions, the outcome couldn't be any more noticeable, with the first film being the prime suspect by haphazardly fitting 8 episodes of material in a more constrained time period. This is one of those cases where cutting a scene here or trimming some fat there in the name of lowering the runtime can paradigm shift your experience, and thus leaves out a number of contexts that may be important, and if not important, would have helped solidify the impact of certain plot points on different levels. The beginning dream sequence? Restructured and moved to the second movie. No longer a dream sequence. The scene where Madoka's father explains what he loves about her mother? Cut. The scene where Madoka cries, being grateful but also a little self-loathing for eating her dad's food after what happened previously? Cut. Madoka's talk with Homura at some food place to talk about Sayaka as a magical girl? Cut. Sayaka arguing with Madoka about Kyoko? Cut. Madoka's conversation with her mother regarding Sayaka? Previous 2 points trim context. Sayaka and Homura's confrontation? Cut. But whatever. While they might have been able to help with drama, character involvement, information, or other such things, the story is mainly the same, so I can live with it. What does get to me though, is the omission of Mami's backstory, where there is no trace behind. I am baffled as to how this decision was made. You're not just leaving out a little detail, you're leaving out the reason why a particular character is a character. Who is she? Why does she do what she does? How is she in life? I would be fine if she was a minor element, but may I remind you that Mami is responsible for one of the biggest plot twists in the entire goddamn series? A twist that relies on you caring about her in some way? And it's thanks to this that her role in the films are chopped to a lower capacity in terms of development. For For those who don't know, Mami was a victim of a horrible car accident that killed her parents and left her on the brink of death. Kyubey came along to grant her a quick wish to save her life, but because it happened so fast, she failed to think about her mother and father, leaving her alone. It gives us insight and communicates to Madoka and Sayaka that, as cool as she seems, her human side is just as fragile, if not more fragile than theirs, which gives great context to a later scene between her and Madoka. In the film, however, because this info is sorely absent, she comes across as another strong and smart mentor character who's great and stuff, but wait, she's lonely for some reason, and sad, scared. But nope, you are wrong, because Madoka makes her happy and isn't sad or scared anymore. Yeah! Let's go fight Charlotte! This is a film that's around 2 hours and 10 minutes. It's not like it's that close to 3 hours. If that was the case, I would understand. But for fuck's sake, the second film adds that subtracts and manages to take up less time. So by not spending a little more time on Mami, and by eliminating her origin, you managed to make a sizable plot hole and starve a key character of any depth. Congratulations, Shaft! Still, even with all of that, the plot is incredibly solid, and no matter how you feel about the main cast, there's no way you can label any of them as being completely pointless. At the same time, the first film is the weakest link, and when using the first 8 episodes of the show as a measuring stick of integrity, even with the intact second film, if you consider both films as being one whole experience, it sadly took a turn for the worse. What hasn't took a turn for the worse is one of the defining components of Puella Magi Madoka Magica, and in contrast to the plot, I'm happy to report that it managed to improve upon its source on almost, if not all, levels. That's right.
The person I love is depressed because he can't play the violin anymore. Contract?
Akiyuki Shinbo and Shaft really go well together, and that's no different for Madoka Magica in general. From the design work with contributions from Ume Aoki and Gakidan Inukuri, to the inaugural music composition by Yuki Kajiura, Madoka Magica is brought to life with solid voice acting that works in unison to the fully realized characters. For the films, we are given redone voiceovers that aren't only improvements from the original, but manages to literally change the mood of a scene, and any lines that may have sounded a bit too flat have received a quality bump. This is thanks in part to a more cinematic direction over how a moment should play out, where a music track is played, and how the actor should feel, amping up the force previously untapped and outputs more suspense, energy, and emotion. The score is pure bliss, using tracks from the show in coordination with the new tracks, and if you thought the music for the show was good, the new tracks are good as well. Powerful, ominous, intense, calm, and hopeful. When Yuki Kajiura and her army of violins, pianos, guitars, and other weapons in her arsenal take the plate, good chance they'll hit a home run. It's all in concert with dramatically improved visuals that make comparisons to the show night and day. From a higher level of detail in the environments to the more consistent character modeling, it all looks gorgeous with its huge scale vistas and other points of interest, such as the lighting and coloring, complementing the visual design from head to toe. This also transfers to any stylistic aesthetics concerning the Witch's Labyrinths, as they, too, get facelifts of their own to a positive, though fairly trippy effect. If there's anything to note about the visuals, however, it's that compared to some other anime films, the animation doesn't look too impressive. That's not to say it looks bad. If anything, Madoka Magica was already a good-looking anime for what it was, and modified to look even better, but it's obvious that most frames were from the original show. This even features the side effect of being at odds with the newly created content, which can look almost a world away. The highlight being this newly added scene of Hamura wandering across a gloomy space. Even if the goal was to grab more cash from Madoka Magica fans, I can't say it's fully insincere with its production values, taking something golden and turning into something holy to the senses, and with the story, the mind. No destructive flub is found in how this was engineered. Yes, it kinda sucks that the show's assets were used as a base, limiting flexibility for what the animators can do, but the overall package makes up for that, and with a story like this, it's more than enough.
I must protect Madoka, no matter what it takes. Contract? I already made one. Contract? I already made one. Contract? I wish you would die!
Puella Magi Madoka Magica proves that a great story can take you long haul, as, despite some minor to grueling cutbacks, if you cherish the experience of watching it one time, you could definitely watch it another time with this version, assuming you're willing to accept the conditions it brings. Personally, Madoka Magica is one of my favorite animes, top 10 even, something I cherish fondly. That said, the films, mainly the first film, have a flavor that's simultaneously similar and different for the better and for the disappointing. Seeing as how I view both Beginning and Eternal as one experience, it didn't feel like it had the same magic. So as a fan of Madoka, I'm going to put this up front. If you have never seen Madoka Magica and wish to be introduced to its story, world, and characters through these films, please stick with the show. You'll get the full story that way. Yeah, as enticing as it is to view it with pristine visuals and audio, it's also incomplete, and any questions you may have while watching may not always have answers because of the abridged nature of the first film. However, if you already see Madoka Magica in its full glory and want to check out the film version because you love the show, then go for it, because as much as it compromises, Madoka Magica is still Madoka Magica for the most part, except now it looks and sounds better than ever. Not a bad deal if you ask me. Overall, viewing Puella Magi Madoka Magica films beginning and eternal as a singular experience, it holds up, though it's missing some parts that would have made all the difference.